The doctors told us that our daughter had stopped growing. And this happened basically in the early stages of my partner's pregnancy. And straight away, we knew that no matter what, our daughter was probably going to be born very, very small indeed. And that's something that, no parent ever really wants to hear. Now, leading into this pregnancy, we were already, a little bit apprehensive anyway, because prior to this, we already had 2 miscarriages. So when my partner got pregnant this time round, we decided this time, to keep our cards close to our chest. So we didn't really tell anyone about it. We just kind of wanted to get past that magical 12-week window first. Now, once we got past that point, we had the usual scans, the usual appointments, and everything seemed absolutely fine. And, we were really happy and excited because everything seemed to be going absolutely perfectly this time. So we started telling, your family and friends that we're going to be having a baby. And as usual, everyone was really happy and excited for us. And we honestly didn't think that there were going to be any problems at all. But after another month or 2, we started going back for those more appointments and scans. And this is where the doctors began to notice that things weren't going quite the way that they should be. They noticed that our daughter wasn't growing the way that she was supposed to. And then after doing a number of tests, sadly, they actually found out that the placenta wasn't functioning properly. Now, as you know, the placenta is basically the baby's lifeline, during pregnancy. It's what delivers the oxygen and the nutrients to the baby. So sadly, in our case, it just wasn't working properly. So our daughter wasn't getting everything that she actually needed to grow at a normal rate. And not only that, she wasn't really growing much at all. And even though she wasn't growing properly though, the doctors explained that the safest place still for her was inside my partner's belly, because she was still getting oxygen, she was still getting some nutrients, but basically just not, enough to help her grow properly. So the decision was made to keep her in the womb for as long as possible and just basically to monitor the situation closely. And if there were any complications, that they would induce labor or perform a C-section. Now, naturally, this is a very worrying time for us. As parents, you start thinking about everything. You start, thinking about how your child's going to be born, whether they're going to be healthy, and all these thoughts start running through your brain. But over the following months, we were in and out of hospital quite a lot. We had a lot of appointments, a lot of scans, and we met with a lot of doctors and nurses. But I will say, though, every single one of them was absolutely amazing. They basically reassured us that although our daughter wasn't growing the way that she should be, she was still alive, she was still moving, and she was still getting what she needed to survive. So we basically kind of had to trust the process. And honestly, that was probably one of the hardest things for me. As a dad, you want to fix things. You want to be able to protect your child. You just want to be able to do something. But sadly, in this situation, there was nothing that I could really do. I just basically had to trust the doctors, trust the nurses, and just trust that everything was going to work out. Now, over the coming months, that's exactly what we did. We went to every appointment, spoke to every specialist, and we just kept believing that everything was going to be okay. Then on May the 25th, 2000, my partner went into labor. Now, this was both exciting and terrifying at the same time as we rushed to the hospital. And although there was, a lot of anxiety about how the birth was actually going to go, everything actually went perfectly. Now, my daughter was born, and when she came out crying. And after hearing that cry, is probably one of the most happiest and relieving moments of my life, because I knew in that moment, she was alive and she was breathing. And even though she was born very, very small, when she was born, she was the size, of the doctor's hand, and she weighed in at just under 2 pounds. And straight away, she was placed into an incubator so they could monitor and making sure, she was basically getting everything that she actually needed. And we also placed this little small soft baby doll that we actually brought for her, and that was actually bigger than her, and that doll was tiny. But the main thing was, that she was breathing, she was crying, and that she seemed healthy. Now, after the doctors had done all their tests, they actually told us something, that we honestly weren't expecting to hear so soon. They actually told us that she was doing really, really well. And after a short time in hospital, only around about, I'd say, a good few days or so, they actually said she was healthy enough for us to take home. So we put her into a car seat for the very first time, which was crazy because she was so tiny, she almost disappeared into it. But it was such an amazing feeling, to finally take her home after everything that we'd gone through. So, after all those months of worry, fear and lots of uncertainty, there was, this baby that we fought so hard for was finally at home. Now, fast forward today, as that was in 2000, now 2026, my daughter is now 17 years old and she's grown into a completely healthy and energetic and happy kid. She's out with a mate, she swims, and she lives life exactly any normal kid would. But, looking back now, honestly, it's incredible to think that, starting out as this tiny little baby weighing in just under 2 pounds. So if there's anything that I like someone who's might be going through something similar to this, to take away from the story, is that sometimes during pregnancy, things don't go exactly the way that you expect them to. There can be complications, there can be some scary moments, and certainly a lot of uncertainty. But it doesn't always mean the worst is going to happen. And looking back now, we had a lot of things that we were worried about that we didn't think was going to turn out. But at the time, it was stressful, it was emotional, and honestly pretty scary. But it also showed me how strong my partner was, how resilient children can be. It's just amazing how the doctors and medical staff who actually helped us through it. So if you're actually going through something similar right now, I do really hope that our story gives you some little bit of reassurance. That even when things feel uncertain, it doesn't mean, like the story is over. Sometimes you just, have to trust the process and just take things one step at a time.